Thanks, Bogdan, and thanks for inviting me. So I'm very much a practitioner. I build systems. I have a large team of engineers. We build all kinds of systems for lots of different people. I'm not your typical academic in many ways. Some people focus on theory and they have a very narrow algorithm. We have the fastest algorithm that does something that no one else has done, and etc. I build lots of different diverse systems. I have a big team of engineers. As Bogdan mentioned, I've been doing social media now for 15 years, give or take. I was collecting social media data when there was not many. Then there was a lot, and now there's a deluge, and those things evolve all the time. I also work with official data. So I have systems that we interface to 150 government agencies across Australia. So I'm not just a social media hack, let's say, and collecting a bit of data. We have lots and lots of systems which do many things for many people. So my job generally, just a bit of background, is I build software for researchers. So researchers come to me and say, hey, we have a grant. Can you help us? We're interested in counting feral cats in rural Victoria or some other random thing. And then they say, can you build a system to do that? And I say, yes, I can. So we get a grant together. I then build that system. They like it. They use it. Word of mouth goes around. And then other people come to me and say, you did that. Can you help us too? So this is kind of what I do. So that's very much my model of how I build systems. The one I'm going to talk about today was largely built by this old man here, two white old men. This is Luca Morandini. He's an Italian guy. He's worked for me for 14 years now. He's worked on many, many different projects. He's a senior developer. He's worked, all the systems I build run on the cloud. So I teach one class. I've just finished teaching. The exam was 2 days ago. I have 420 students taking that class, all very talented young kids trying to get jobs and trying to get careers in cloud technology and applied AI and all this kind of stuff. And so I generally hire them. I don't advertise on the internet. I don't say, hey, come and work for me on LinkedIn. I just get the best in class because we teach the kind of tech that we use. So I am not your typical academic. As I say, I've had over $500 million now of funding. So I get lots of money all the time. I only typically get the big grants because why would you try and get 50K when you can get 500K or 5 million? It doesn't work. I mean, I have one ARC grant at the moment. I never do, and generally don't go there because it's just not worth the effort. You have a 1 in 10 chance, and if you get funded, you get 300K over 3 years, which is half a postdoc. So I typically go for the much larger grants worth a lot more money. I'm not being cynical here. I'm not being sort of business oriented. It's just a fact of reality. I have a lot of people in that picture that require me to generate income because all of their jobs depend on me to keep the money coming in. And they build systems, the systems work, the customers like them, and then we have this symbiotic relationship. So I work with all kinds of different disciplines. I've worked with arts and humanities. I've worked with Oxford English Dictionary on the history of the English language. I work with Intel on next generation computer chip design. I work with zoologists and National Geographic saving tigers in the jungle. All kinds of random projects at the end of the day. And it covers the complete spectrum from full, big, complicated engineering solutions with millions of lines of code to a little database with a front end that someone just needed to do their thing. So it doesn't really matter to me what these things are at the end of the day. The niche I guess I focus on is to do with data and security. It's very rare someone comes to me and says, hey, we've got this algorithm. Can you make it go faster? It's never like that from my side. It's a case of we have all this data scattered all over the place and we can't make sense of it. And it's all behind firewalls. Can you unlock it all and bring it all together so as we can do, national diabetes projects or things of that nature? And so that's now dealing with both the data. It's always heterogeneous. It's always completely different, as well as the security aspects of it. So who can see this data? Can you re-identify someone from that data? What can you do with this data that we didn't want you to do with it, etc.? So I'm very much working in that space in most of my projects. In the last few years, I've been doing AI since there was AI, I guess, but in the last few years, everybody wants AI, machine learning, large language models, visual language models, and make them real. Not just a case of you can, use ChatGPT, host it locally, run these models on data that can't leave the University of Melbourne. And so we do a lot of that kind of stuff as well. So very much applied. Not because I want to run 20 different models. it's because we have to, and they're the models that we're running right now. As Bogdan said, I have supervised literally thousands now of dissertations. Lots of students want to graduate at the University of Melbourne, and if you want to graduate, you have to have a dissertation. So these are typically either 1 semester, 2 semesters, or the full year. And I have lots of them. In fact, many of the people in the picture here I supervised. This is kind of where my pipeline comes from. So anyway, enough about me. So what I was going to do in the next, I'm quite happy to make this interactive rather than just, I'm not going to walk around with a microphone and do workshops and, tables and this kind of stuff. But if you have questions, if you want me to go a bit deeper or less deep or explain a bit more, just fire away. I'm quite happy to be interactive. But there's one system I'm going to talk about today, which we've been building for some time now. And this is called AIReD, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But basically, it's a collection of large-scale, Australia-oriented or Australia-specific social media from any kind of social media platform that has an API. We don't scrape LinkedIn. We don't scrape TikTok. We don't scrape. That's always a nightmare if you try and do that. And it's also kind of illegal. You shouldn't be doing it. There are terms and conditions about LinkedIn. If you try to scrape there, I've done it. I mean, I'm saying I'm doing illegal things all the time, but if somebody says, can you scrape LinkedIn and find everybody who works in the in Melbourne in health, I've done it. We've worked out, how the algorithms for doing that, but these systems get very sophisticated. They know the difference between me clicking and a piece of software going and grabbing. So they're we have clever ways to work around when it kind of constraints they come up with. But anyway, I don't scrape. I'm trying to do it the right way here. So what I'm doing is, a lot of these social media platforms exist around the world or deployed on servers in Australia, and they offer what we call an API, an application programming interface, which allows you to talk to it and get responses. And I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like in a little while. But what we've been doing is we've been collecting lots of this data from many different platforms through this AIReD project. And I'm going to show it to you. You can play with it yourself. If you're all academics in Australia, I think most of you probably are, you can log in, you can access the data now. It's free. I don't charge. It's all for the benefits of society and all those research topics that you would like to explore. I will show you the functionality we provide right now, including some, not bleeding edge, but certainly at the leading edge of using large language models to talk to our systems, which can be, you can ask, just write text and it will answer you, which is kind of different. You might have seen that with, say, ChatGPT or Claude, but we have it now where we can do the same thing with APIs, where you can talk to an API and you can ask, what kind of data have you got? And it will come back with answers. I was then going to, depending on how the time goes, I was going to talk a little bit about examples of what I've just had my students do. So I've just finished teaching a class. I teach one class, cloud computing. I had 420 students do that. Yeah, they've just finished their exam, but they had a 6-week project to build a system. And I get them to use AIReD as the basis for finding data and then collecting all their own data. And I was just going to show you some of the things that's possible to do, just to give you a bit of idea what's what you can use this data for. I mean, there are many, many projects I've worked on in social media, probably a few hundred now, where I've cooked up ideas of, let's look at if people are happier if they live next to green space, or let's get access to all the data that's got pictures of food and then try and work out what food is being eaten across Melbourne, or random projects I cook up all the time because I'm a man of many ideas. And then the final part is I will also talk about official data. Sorry, I've got a tickly cough. So we have the social media data, which a lot of academics will think, oh, that's just, girls liking boy bands and it's not proper data. If you want the proper data, you go to the Bureau of Statistics and you get the official census data and you get the official, where all the bottle shops in Melbourne, that's official data that we can go and get access because government agencies have it. We also have access to a lot of that data too, which I'll show you. Again, it's free. You can just knock yourself out and have a play with it and see if it helps you in your research. One thing I will flag, though, is that historically, we used to have a lot of data from social media that was geocoded. So I knew who was tweeting from a certain location, like, say, Twitter or Instagram or things like this. It would say, I am actually here. It would have a latitude, a longitude. Then we would collect millions and millions of these posts. And then you would say how much crime is happening in Carlton. and then how many people are complaining about crime in Carlton, for example. We generally can't do that now because most of the big data providers just refuse to play the game, and they don't. And even when they weren't, they were restricting access to location information. So, but nevertheless, you can still do quite a lot with the data, and I'll show you this in a little while. All right, so social media. So there are many, many challenges of social media. It's an Orwellian nightmare, I guess, at the end of the day. And the amount of information which is being released by people throwing out a random tweet of here's Rich giving a talk, or here's me and my, avo sandwich for brekkie or whatever. You don't realize how much information you're releasing when you do that. That kind of information has lots and lots of metadata describing you, the device you're sending it from, where you're sending it from, the time you're sending it, who you follow, who follows you. All this information is together with here's a picture of my avo butty, my frothy coffee, or whatever it might be. And that's used by all kinds of people for all kinds of purposes. So it's a bit of a nightmare. So I'll give you one example of a scary project, which I did a while ago. I got away with it because the university didn't find out about it, but it was kind of, I probably in retrospect shouldn't have done it. But I had a student who said he was interested in human trafficking and he wanted to explore social media. I said, oh, no one's going to talk about, that. It's not a thing. So he said, okay, let me focus on the adult industry in Melbourne. Okay, well, fair enough. So he types in a few naughty keywords into these APIs saying whatever it might be. And then you can find a lot of the posts are being sent from certain locations. So you suddenly find out there's a building in St. Kilda called the Sexy Kitten Club or whatever it might be. Which is kind of fine. You got all these people who are advertising services and people who are posting from there, which is okay. I'm an adult. It happens. But then you can say whoever else has published or sent a message from that building. And then you get lots of posts now saying, I'm running late, dear. I'll be home. I'm stuck in traffic. But we know you were in the Sexy Kitten Club. And we know what you were doing and where you were doing it. And this is the problem. This is where privacy is a nightmare when you get that. So we can track these people now. Once you've got one tweet, you can then start tracking them across multiple social media platforms, not just the one. We've done a lot of work on linking people across platforms. And hence it's a nightmare. If these people had no idea how much information they were releasing about themselves, saying, here I am, I'm stuck, whatever it might be. You then have this world of we're all being monitored. We're all being tracked. If you're throwing information out like this, you kind of need to know what you're doing because otherwise, someone is tracking this stuff all the time. If I said something about terrorists or Palestine or whatever it might be, straight away it's bang. They know it's me and what I'm doing. So we're not living in this wonderful democratic society. I won't go political, but we're in a world now where information is being captured all the time about us. There are lots of people posting random stuff right now. I mean, the whole world of fake news. We heard this a bit earlier. People send out posts. Most people get the news these days. They don't buy when I was growing up, you'd have the Times or the Guardian or your left-wing press or your right-wing press. Now it's social media. Most people are reading Facebook news or getting the updates from Twitter, or they log into Twitter and get the Guardian posts being fed in there, etc. So now you're getting populated with these kind of random information that's coming out. Some of it's incorrect, some of it's a downright lie, some of it's true. How do you disambiguate? So there's a lot of work we've been doing in that kind of world. We're working with national intelligence and a bunch of others to try and tease out the veracity, is I guess what we call it. We're dealing with lots of different data sets. They're not all the same. They're all diverse. They all have their own data structures. They have their own, if you're in tech, their own schema. They have their own attributes. They'll have their own information, how they structure it. And it comes in a deluge. It's not just like, here's a database and it'll be updated once a day. This data is being hundreds of thousands of posts every day are coming in onto Blue Sky or into Mastodon or into Reddit. And we have to be able to deal with all of those different data structures and build systems that people can ask, what do people think about Albanese or Andy Burnham in the UK and whatever the thing might be. These are the sort of challenges we have to overcome. We have large volumes of data. It's coming in at scale. It's heterogeneous, and you don't always know whether you should believe it or not. So again, this is kind of the real world of my real world of big data. When I teach cloud computing, I teach how we tackle some of those things. So the technologies we use When I learned databases, you'd have a schema. You'd have a tables and relationships between tables. That kind of world is gone now. We don't do that anymore. We're dealing with blobs of data, and we run algorithms across the blobs of data. And the killer, which I guess was maybe presented yesterday, is ethics. According to the University of Melbourne, every single tweet I have or post I have to get approval from the person that made it. I've got 500 million something posts now. It's just not realistic, and it's not going to happen. And industry don't do this anyway. The very fact that they're going to use your data to do what, sell you T-shirts or sell you holidays. You like tennis, they're going to sell you tennis rackets. This is the kind of the world. You are a commodity. Your posts are tailoring you for marketing. That's kind of why it's kind of ridiculous, but it's the truth. These companies are trillion-dollar companies because they do marketing. They're selling you stuff. They're profiling you and what you might like, and people pay for their adverts on there. But in academia land, it's kind of, there is no easy answer to this. I'm abiding by all the terms and conditions from all the systems that are out there. I will not release the raw data. I won't track people and see they were in the sexy kitten club and all this kind of stuff. I could if I wanted to, but I don't. But the universities have a really hard time in dealing with that kind of stuff. They don't like this kind of collecting individual level data, and it is individual level data, and being able to do things with that. And this is something that the universities have, they're not really sure how to solve it, basically. So they kind of just push it to the side and say don't do anything bad with it. But fundamentally, there's no way I can get approval for all this data that I'm collecting from every single person that's posting. And half of the time, it might be a bot anyway, or a Russian, or a Ukrainian, or an Iranian, or whoever's posting to try and change the political landscape, etc. Okay, so just out of interest, how many of you have ever accessed and used, not just posted, but tried to collect social media data? All right, about a third. Okay, so for many people, they have a laptop. If you want to collect, say, Mastodon data, or Blue Sky, or Reddit, you'll go and say, well, I've gone to the developer, sort of dev.reddit or dev.twitter, or whatever it might be, and there's a bit of code here that I can use. I need to get a key, an API key. I apply for it, they give you it, and then based on that, you have a bit of Python code which says use this key to connect to that API, and then say, give me data on Anthony Albanese or politics in Australia or whatever it might be. And you think it's good because you're getting data now. I'm running. I'm conquering the world, and I'm going to answer every political science question you could ever think of in Australia. Unfortunately, when you start dealing with it, you're going to run out of data very quick, or rather, you're going to drown in data. There are so many people posting all the time. My laptop will be, it'll last a day. If I said collect all the data from all the systems I could access, I will be getting hundreds of thousands of posts every day, and my laptop would just literally be grinding to a halt with the amount of data. But many people want this. They want to be able to access social media for a variety of reasons. So a good example is, let's say, COVID. If you wanted real live up-to-date information on COVID, you wait for the doctors and you wait for the hospitals and you wait for all these cases, or you get live access to social media. It's posting lots of things all the time. The question is, I'll give you an example. Let's say someone's posts, a lion's escaped from London Zoo. Oh, what an idiot. So no, it hasn't. A couple of people post about this in the same vicinity. You think, that's a bit weird. London Zoo say, we're sorry we left the gate open. Now, bloody hell, there's a lion loose. There's an element of believability which is now increasing. With algorithms, you can implement those kind of believability indexes. You can start building more trust in a random post on its own, screaming at the world. You kind of don't really believe it. But when you have a critical mass, and then when you start looking at the communities that are posting this, and it's the same people that posted about the escaped orangutan, it's like, don't believe them. They're just conspiracy theorists, etc. But you get so much data coming through that eventually you start believing some of the patterns in the data. And that's really where the question I had about the previous talk about theory. I kind of don't really get theory, if I'm honest. Give me the data. I'll tell my own stories from the data. I want to be, I don't know if it's true or not, but give me enough data and I will be able to build an evidence base to say, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Maybe Anthony Albanese will win the next election, or maybe it'll be Angus Taylor or whoever it might be. But you build up evidence of Data drives theory from my side, or drives questions and scenarios, which you can then say, hey, it matches what I was thinking anyway. But maybe you didn't know that, so you had access to the data to tell these stories. I won't get controversial, but my PhD is in theoretical computer science, so I'm very much in bed with theory. But at the end of the day, most of my work now is less theoretical, it's less theory. It's more about show me this data. So show me what it means to you. So anyway, we need systems that can collect lots of data. So AIReD, there was a previous project funded by, there's lots of acronyms, as you can imagine, in computer science, and there's a thing called NCRIS. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but that's like the Australian government puts billions of dollars into national infrastructure. It might be national cloud, or it might be national collecting all the living information of species in Australia, or it might be to do with whatever. I mean, we have big agencies that are getting hundreds of millions of dollars to improve the research across Australia more generally. So AIReD is part of AIO, which was funded by one of these NCRIS facilities called ARDC, which is Australian Research Data Commons, and we have a large amount of money to build this, but it builds on previous work we've been doing. So what social media are we talking about? I mean, people probably, you might be on Facebook. I was on Facebook till all my students started following me, and I couldn't be bothered dealing with the political correctness of what I'm allowed to say and not say, so I stopped. So anything with an API, we will access and use. It's fair game. We're not trying to cheat. We're not trying to scrape things that shouldn't be collected. So once upon a time, we had Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, Flickr, and Foursquare. They were our goals. They had an API we could talk to. We didn't try and get data from all the other ones that are out there. I mean, I guess in the AIO project, there are people who are doing TikTok, downloading adverts and data donations. You can, all my YouTube history I could upload to a system, and it will tell me which adverts I've seen, etc. There's other focus of the projects on that. We're not doing that. We are literally just collecting data from all these different systems that are out there. We were collecting data from Instagram until Mr. Zuckerberg bought it and then said, no, the access is no longer allowed. You have to pay. And that's generally the model with these big social media platforms. They're not nice. They're not, benefits humanity. It's business. They want your money. And so they restricted access pretty much overnight. A couple of years back, we had access to the full. So historically, we'd have 1 in every 100 tweets that were being posted. So we'd say, give me all the posts that you in Melbourne to Twitter. And they would get 1 in every 100 tweet. It was like called the garden hose. You might think that's not very much, but you'd be amazed how many people post all the time. And there are hundreds of thousands of posts coming through. So there's millions of posts happening. And so we were collecting a lot of that data. And then Twitter said, all right, we're going to be really nice. We're going to give you access to all the data now. So we started collecting huge amounts of data, every post that was being made from Twitter. And we were scaling like crazy. It was kind of difficult to keep up until this guy bought Twitter. And he said, no, that's no longer going to happen. It's all mine now. I pay for it. You have to pay me. And they pay you. If you want to have access to Twitter data, you pay a huge amount of money. So I had one project, which I'll talk about later, trying to identify, it's like a sensitive project, but it was people who committed suicide. And they wanted to know what did they say online before they died. So we had to try and find them online. And, your Twitter account might be hotdog47. It's got nothing to do with Richard Sinnott. I could have any kind of name for my account. It doesn't have to be my name, clearly. So we had to then go back in time and say, could we have data? Because I'll talk a bit later, but long story short, we were quoted $1,200 per gigabyte of data from Twitter. And we had no idea if that data was going to find the people that we were looking for. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. So again, it's about money. Businesses pay for this. They want to profile themselves. Are we better than our competitors? How many people have heard about us? Is our brand getting recognition now? All this kind of stuff is happening. So we lost access to Twitter. And so we improvised, or we pivoted, or however you want to call it. So Twitter went. So then we decided, okay, it became X. And then we said, okay, well, we're going to go for Mastodon then. So for those who don't, I'll talk about this in a little while, but Mastodon is like an open source federated version of Twitter. It hasn't got the same kind of scale, but it's still a lot of data. And it's, you can say, I want to collect all the data for Australia from OzSocial or Mastodon.au. There's all these different servers that are being set up, and they have an API. You can talk to them, you can get their data. And so that's what we do. We also got Blue Sky, which is a new kid on the block, which is from the same guy who set up Twitter, and they have an API, so we can access their data now. And we are. There's another resource called GDELT, which is more news and events from Google. So they are collecting every kind of news article and presentation and events and demonstrations that are happening around the world. They are collecting that in a database, and we query that and we pull in information related to Australia. So there's a wide array of sources of data that we collect and interface to and pull into our system. So what do people do with it? So I've just described, we have all this kind of wonderful data. What can you do with it? There's a few things that we typically do. I mean, firstly, it's about discovery. If you want to know what's happening online across all these platforms, how would you know? You could type in the name of a thing, but you might want to know how many times does that occur. If people are talking about this, what else are they talking about? How do you know it's about conflict or politics? If it just says Anthony Albanese, we kind of know that means politics, presumably. But how does any algorithm know that term is connected with Gaza or connected with immigration or connected with other things? So we need to be able to work out what these individual posts, how do they collectively cluster together to describe an area or topics effectively. How then do you get access to the data? So you can say, okay, give me every post that Anthony Albanese, and anyone who's ever mentioned Anthony Albanese or Benjamin Netanyahu or Donald Trump, heaven forbid, you're going to get lots and lots and lots of posts about this. What we don't do, and this is kind of where I try to be a good guy and align with the various policies of all these platforms, we don't give you the raw data. We're not allowed to. Twitter make a lot of money. All these platforms would go ballistic if we found that we were harvesting all this data and passing it on to others, because we're not supposed to. But what we can do is we can tell you these things exist. You can type in a bunch of terms and it'll find you all these different posts that are happening. And then you can download the identifiers for them posts, and then you can go and get them yourself. And we have tooling that shows you how to do this. So if you're in political science and you want to know Labour, Coalition, Greens, One Nation, Pauline Hanson, yada, 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 you get all that data. You can then download all the identifiers for it, and then you can go and grab all that data yourself. So instead of you connecting to 20 different, all these different platforms and asking for, give me a bit of data on Pauline Hanson or One Nation, we have all of that and we give you access to it, but you then have to go and get it for yourself and what we call rehydrate the data. I'll show you what that looks like in a little while. And what we've been doing recently as well is using natural language querying. So we have a way to talk to the system where you can just ask questions like, how many posts have you got that mention Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu, or show me all the posts that mention from The Guardian or The Guardian to do with, politics. And then you could say, well, this is left-leaning or right-leaning, or they didn't report this. Look how they've rephrased the atrocity that just happened. They've toned it down, whereas here they've maximized it and they're making it horrible, etc., etc. Again, I don't try to influence. It's just a case of you ask a question, the system, here's the data. You can now use your own algorithms, come up with your own theories, explore that data however you want in your own time, basically. I was going to do a demo of this, but I don't know if it's worthwhile doing a demo, but hopefully this is what I'm dealing with when I talk data. So all the data we're dealing with is something called JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. If you've never heard of it and you're not a computer scientist, don't panic. But this is kind of what the actual data looks like. So for example, this is one post in Blue Sky, and this is one post in Mastodon. And you can sort of see how much information. So this post was in German, down the bottom here. I just took a picture of this before. So the language it's being tweeted in was in German. And it's like a Settle and Silent. I speak German, by the way. This is like the note that was provided. This is the text, but you can sort of see all the other information that's being released along with that. Similarly, here's one from Blue Sky saying Happy New Year. I'm not going to open the picture, but presumably it's something naughty. But it tells you who's your followers. When did you create this? Where did you create it? What device did you use to create it? If you posted something iffy, let's say, I could then say, who follows you? I want to start tracking them now. So I built a graph of all the people that are following you and what they're posting around. And then you could then start working out, how news flows across the communities. So we do a lot of work in that space, how a given post will get reposted and retweeted and reliked and up and etc. And then we can say it's the same people all the time. It's a, classic is Trump. All his followers say yes, 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 and it's the same people. The reflection pool was vandalism, and you have 100,000 yes it was from the same people that said, agreed last time when he said something patently false. So we can build algorithms that can identify, is it the same people saying the same things about the same stuff, or is it a different set of people now who might not normally agree with that content? So there's the sort of things that we do. But in the raw, gory detail, this is what it looks like. This is your typical single post. We have 600 and something million of these right now. So we have lots and lots of this data coming through. And the only thing that we care about is it's from Australia. So with certain posts, like say Reddit. So Reddit is a global platform. You'll have many Reddit subgroups or subreddits, they call it. So if it's say Reddit Australia, Reddit Melbourne, Reddit Sydney, Reddit whatever, we can say, well, that's probably us. We're going to grab that. But what we don't know is that maybe that's someone from Hawaii or someone from Canada who's saying our coffee is better than yours. Vancouver's got better coffee than you do. Probably, we're not guaranteeing every single post we have is guaranteed to be Australian. But what we can do is say the vast majority probably are. And statistically, if you start analyzing hundreds of millions, you're dealing with statistical now. You're dealing with the probability, 99 point whatever percent is, this is Australia that we're dealing with. But yeah, so the data is pretty gnarly in the end. All right, now I'm going to try and do a one-handed demo, or I'll hold the microphone here, and I'll just talk and show you the system. All right, so let me just start off with, I haven't logged into the system yet. So it's AIO eResearch. So my team is the eResearch group at Uni Melb. And we are, again, there are a few things to show. There is, if you wanted to get an API key, so if you wanted to programmatically access our data, you can. You can say query our systems and it will allow you to access. You have to tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and generally speaking, we have, I can't remember, 100 maybe, couple of hundred people who've done this up to now, who said, I'm in the political sciences or indigenous studies, and I want access to your data. And generally speaking, we say yes. I don't think we've ever said no, to be honest. The one issue with our system is that we only allow access to academics. So I've had a bunch of news people or people from industry who said, can I have access? We can't allow access to them. Generally speaking, it violates our terms and conditions about academic research use is our goal. So there's other things we have. There's API documentation. So just to show you what it looks like. Okay, if you're not a computer scientist, this might look like gobbledygook, but if you are a bit of a techie, then it will show you how it works. You get a key from us saying, here's your activation key. You've applied, you want to do a project in political science. I need access to your systems and your data. We say, okay, here you go, here's your key. You've now got a developer key, a user key, and with that now you can access our system. So as an example, here's a little bit of Python code, which shows you how this bit of code with your key will connect to our system, and you can say, give me any posts about Anthony Albanese, or how many people have posted about tariffs, or whatever the scenario might be, electric vehicles in China, or whatever. And then we have a bunch of endpoints. This is our API. If that doesn't mean anything, don't worry. Where you can say, okay, how many posts have you got to do with, between two certain dates? So tell me how many posts you've had. So we have 284 or 2.84 million posts between those 2 days. So we have an API which allows you to programmatically interface. It might be through your own bit of code on your desktop. It might be through a Jupyter notebook. It could be through some whatever technology you're comfortable with. We don't really care. This API allows you to talk to it and pull out data. It doesn't have to be Python. It could be Java. It could be anything, to be honest. As long as your program can talk a protocol, which is how the internet works, which is, I don't want to get too techie. There's a thing called REST and HTTP. Yeah, there's a question. If your R can be, yeah, so generally speaking, all right, I will go a little bit techie because someone's pointed me to tech. So if you wanted to access our system, there is a thing in computer science called web services. So there's a thing, if you're accessing your bank account, let's say for NAB, then you have a browser and then you access your, you go to nab.com or whatever it may, commonwealthbank.com, etc. And then you type in your username or your bank details and your password, and then you have access to your bank details. What you've just done then is you're accessing a system over the internet, and that system is driven by an API. Those APIs are generally written in something called REST, representational state transfer. So it's basically a way to talk from sending a message, it gets encrypted, receiving a message, decrypting it, it knows who you are, it allows access to your bank account, and it sends back. So that is normally a HTTP method. Again, you don't have to worry too much, but that method might be get or put or post, or there's a few little methods that exist that allow you to interact with a remote thing. Most social media realize RESTful APIs. They have their own way of doing things. This is kind of, if you want to look up how many times Donald Trump's tweeted to Twitter, let's say, it connects to their system. It will be a RESTful API. You'd ask a question saying Donald Trump, and they will give you an answer coming back. That's generally how it works. So as long as you're R, and there are packages available. So if you're using R or whatever, maybe not so much in stats packages, but most mainstream programming languages, you can have an R script that will call out and do a HTTP get or a post. So short answer is yes, it's possible. All right. So we have an API. You can see the sort of functionality here. There's a bit of tutorial about how to use it. Before I go into the how to hydrate or how to drive the system, so there's a bit of information about what the system does. So it will describe it, the various posts. But let's just say I've just found some data in. I'm just trying to work why this doesn't. So let's just say, for argument's sake, it was Twitter. I've just got downloaded. We still have a lot of Twitter data in the system, but it's not being updated. We have 180 million posts, I think it was. Now you want to be able to programmatically access that. Then there is a bit of a recipe here saying, yes, you've just found out there's all these 20 million posts to do with Donald Trump, and now you want them locally. So that's what we call hydrating a tweet. So we give you the post IDs, and we show you a bit of code. Follow this recipe, and you'll connect to Twitter, and it will pull down all of that raw data for you. Even though we've got the raw data, we can't give it to you directly because Twitter and Mastodon and other sites wouldn't like us. But what we do is we point you to all these unique identifiers for each individual post. You can go and get it. You can go and get it. And we show you the code for doing that. So you're basically getting the identifiers for the posts. You have a bit of code on your side, which goes then to Twitter or Mastodon or Reddit or whatever, saying, give me this, give me this, give me this. And then you're getting all of the data that you were interested in. You don't have to collect everything because we've done that for you. But you have to go and get the raw data itself for yourself. So that's what we call by hydrating. All right, let me show you enough talk and I'll show you the system now. All right, so the first thing you have to do is you have to log in. So, and this is where going live is always fun. So we have a whole bunch of things here, but the thing that I'm going to show you is the dashboard, which is like the main shop front window to what we're offering. So I say I'm interested in the dashboard. I says, I don't know you. Where are you from? Who are you, imposter? I say I'm from the University of Melbourne. I will log in as myself with the University of Melbourne account details. And now we have multi-factor authentication going on, so I'm going to have to type in my special password. Or I have to enter that number. It then says, yes, that really was you. I am the only person with this phone. So it gives me access. All right, so what you see now is that we have a lot of data. So this is just the aggregation. This is like from today. We started collecting Blue Sky at the beginning of 24, and we're now on the 24th of June. We have 223 million posts from Blue Sky. The Twitter has just stopped. So that our last post before Musk took over was 21st of April. But we have a lot of data, long story short, some more than others. Some of them you might think like YouTube, we should get lots of YouTube, but they restrict. Google are nice guys. They say you can only have a little bit of data. You can't have access to all of our comments and every video that's ever been uploaded. So we have a lot of data in the system. What you can see is this is showing all of the as of, where are we? So we have 600,000 posts, give or take, a day coming into the system from all the different platforms combined, without Twitter, because we're not, Twitter stopped, so we get rid of Twitter. If you looked at just Blue Sky, we're getting, 450, and this is just Australia, 450,000 posts on Monday, and then it was 418,000 on Tuesday. I could look at that by the hour and seeing which hours of the day the people post the most, etc. I could do the same thing for each one of the platforms. I could say, what does GDELT look like? If you've never heard of GDELT, it's a system out there. You can go and play with it, but I'll show you this in a little while. But even there, we have like 20,000 posts or 10,000 posts a day coming through. And then if you look, say, at Mastodon, where again, it's comparing to YouTube, to Twitter, and Twitter is probably 1 million. It was like 700, 800,000 a day. We're getting a lot more data coming from the main social media platforms, but they've blocked access. Similarly, Reddit goes up and down. These are the Reddit subgroups which are specific to Australia. So what else can you do? So there's lots of data in the system now. I could look at the topics, what people are talking about online. If I say, let's say I'm interested in Blue Sky, what have people been talking about in the last 2 weeks? And well, there you go. Topic number 1 is going to be Israel, Iran. At the back end, what we've done, all this raw data comes in. We then process it. We then do something called topic modeling. We get rid of the I love Benjamin Netanyahu or whatever it might be. I say Netanyahu love whatever, and that makes a short normalized text, which we then run it through an algorithm, which gives us but it gives us like a vector. And then we compare all the vectors that are similar to the one we've just got. So this is like topic modeling in a nutshell. So what you see is that I can say, okay, people have been talking about Iran and Israel and Netanyahu and Bibi and Lebanon and weapons and all this kind of stuff. I could say, well, there's only 5 terms in common. If I wanted to say, well, I want to make it a bit more, I need at least 13 terms in common right now. So basically what I mean by this is that on any given day, there'll be a collection of terms. Each one of these circles has at least 1,000 posts connected with it. And each individual day, there'll be a range of people talking about Israel and conflict, or Trump and reflection pools, or price of beans, or whatever it might be. The next day, it might be the price of tea bags or milk, or the next day, it might be price of that. And then it's like farmers and diesel, and then getting milk to and from the shop. So these topics evolve on a daily basis. It's not just like the same terms occur across the whole week. These terms evolve. So people that are talking about this will talk about something else on the next day. And you can say, how many terms in common do you want to have to make that graph? So in this case, I said 13 terms are the ones that I'm interested in. If I went to Twitter, then we have a lot more data here. If I said I'm interested in, you suddenly see there's a lot more connectedness of all the data that's happening. So I can see certain topics. Okay, this is historic data now. But you sort of see there's people who talked about this also spoke about this, and they spoke about this. And these are the people that were talking about all these things at different times. This gives you the big picture, I guess what I'm saying. If you're interested in political science, you get political coverage here. You could say, I don't know, let me just say Aboriginal. How many posts talk about Indigenous? So I can now see people talking about Indigenous. This might be during when we had the referendum, let's say, and The Voice. There were lots of noise on social media about this at the time, and all the people that were promoting it and whatever. You sort of see, you would have access to, you sort of see the big picture of what's going on. If I wanted to, I could hit that download button now. And what that would do would be, for all the posts that I mentioned in that topic, it would give me all the tweet IDs. I could now get all that Twitter data, identifiers. I could then, well, you can't now because Twitter's being, nasty. But if it was Blue Sky, I could say, go and give me all that data now, please. And I will get all that data just for me to do my own research on Indigenous, whatever it was the scenario. So topic modeling is a way to get the big picture of all the things that are happening on a given day or over a given period. I could also do things like, say, let me just I'll pick Reddit this time. So people who talk about people, we have ways of looking at the things that people who are talking about, let me pick an example, dogs, whatever. People who talk about dogs also on Reddit talk about neighbors, money, like, CBD, build, bark. Again, I don't justify the data. This is what the data is telling me from social media land. People, there's a strong correlation between people who talk about dogs also talk about neighbors. If I look at schools, there'll be immigrants, it'll be parties, suburbs, tax, election, Pauline Hanson, presumably. So again, lots of noise happening all the time. And this is data from the last week or so. If I wanted to extend that, I could say, give me more data. Just to say there's millions of posts, which I'm making it look like it's all interactive and just clickety-click and like a website. It's not. The engineering behind the back end of this is phenomenal. I mean, good job, my team, it's not me. We are dealing with hundreds of millions of posts being processed in real time on the fly to produce these graphs and charts. So there's lots of clever engineering that have worked. There is a part of the national infrastructure is a thing called Nectar, which is the national cloud. That was my acronym way back in the day when I first came to Australia from the UK. And basically that couldn't cope with our data because we have so much data and it goes so fast into the system. We need to have really fast IO. So the reading and writing to and from disk has to be super fast. So we bought our own kit to make it work. But historically, we could say you can only have 2 days, because if you ask for more than 2 days, then the system's going to grind to a halt because our system just couldn't cope with the volume. Now we can, basically. All right, I'll show you a few different things here. So let me just show you through, let's say, GDELT. In fact, ask me something that you might be interested in that might have been reported in the news. I don't care what it is. Nothing vulgar. Pool. All right. I'll try pool to start with. It may have come up with nothing, or maybe not. So we have 152,000 posts about your reflecting pool, I assume. What you'll find as well is a lot of these are not connected to. Let me put something else. Let me put reflecting. Is it reflecting or reflection? So I've now gone down to 10,000. And some of these are not related at all to, let me add another, I say I'm interested in text and I want Trump. I've got 1,500 posts to do with Trump and his pool, for argument's sake. If I wanted to now, I could say, well, maybe this was someone controversial that was saying it was true, and it was, I know it was true. Here's a picture of the vandalism that was caused, and it's like AI generated. So what I could do is I could say, well, give me more posts from, hopefully this works, abc.net. So how many times did abc.net.au post about Trump and his reflecting pool? So there's like 10. I can go from the topic to the term to tell me everything about these people who are posting this stuff. If I got rid of that, for example, and I said, show me, I just run that query again. Show me on a map of the world where these are happening. So where are all these posts happening on GDELT, who are complaining about, looks like someone's posting from the middle of nowhere by the look of it, some army base in, is that, no, it's not, it's no, Siberia or something. So clearly there's some Russian thing going on about the reflecting pool. It was all, you know, it was happening, but you know, the data's the data. I don't make it up. So clearly there's lots of things talking about this in Washington. GDELT provides location. It tells us Washington News or the, you know, the Sydney Herald, etc. It's all news articles that are posted online. And based on that, now we can go and dive in and say, okay, well, show me where these people are posting from. And if you got people posting about, you know, the reflecting pool and Trump, yep. I could try. It's generally English, I think. Give me a. Okay, I'll type in Schule. So there's 295 posts to do with Schule, which is school in German. So yes, we have text. Again, if you ask me, I mean, I'm learning Mandarin, but I'm not going to write even remote. I'll try. Oh, okay, there's one. That means professor. So anyway, so again, you have lots of data. You can knock yourself out. If you find the things you're interested in, you can go and download it. You can then go and rehydrate it. You can build your own theorems. You can collect your own, build your own stories. We have examples of features that we are offering now. It's a free resource. Anyone can log in. Anyone can play around with it. If I go to a different system now, let's just say I'm interested in Blue Sky. I'm not going to look at Zhao Shou, but maybe I want to add author Albanese. I think I might have had to get rid of a not here now, but so we've got 66,000 posts. Oh yeah, about Anthony Albanese. If I wanted to, you know, also add a rule saying Pauline Hanson. Is it Hanson? I think it's Hanson. So how many people about? No. People who, oh yeah, no. 267 posts are talking about the same two people. Again, you could make up electric vehicles if you're interested in BYD versus Teslas versus Musk versus geopolitics versus crime. The system's there. You can access, you know, a lot of data that's available for you to play around with and do with what you will. The last bit is a bit more of an exploratory thing that we've been looking into, because we can, and we kind of like doing these things, which is a chat interface to all that system. So we've got lots of data now in our database. It's not just a database, it's a, without being geeky, it's a database that runs across multiple servers. And that allows us to scale. So we now have APIs to the system, which allows you to talk and collect data and ask questions of the data. And so I can say, how many data collections are in AIReD? So now what's doing, I'm talking natural language now, but I'm talking to an API, which has got a bunch of methods, which is somehow interpreting what I'm asking, converting it to a query, which then goes into, well, there are 7. Which data collection has the most data, has the most posts? Again, if just exploring the data just through talking to it, we've done some work as well looking at natural language. You can talk to the system. It will translate your text or your voice to text, and then you can interface that to generate this kind of data. Again, it's saying that Blue Sky's got the most. How many times was Trump mentioned in Blue Sky? Again, you just talk to the system, and there's a range of technology doing this, by the way. It's not just me. There's a thing called Model Context Protocol, which takes my text, converts it to an interface specific query, which allows you to ask questions of the system and data more generally. So it's probably going to So Donald Trump was mentioned nearly 8.5 million times in Blue Sky. So again, this is the kind of system we've been building now. It's a work in progress still. It's never finished. There's certain features I want, which we're going to produce in due course. I would like to be able to query everything all at once. So right now, when I was querying the data, it was this one. I could say, which one do you want? And you select one. I want the all option. And I want that topic graph to show me all. And I also want a whole range of other features, which the techies are crying every time I have an idea, but that's kind of what's coming next time around. There's also, I'm interested in trying to geocode a lot of this data. So, you might say, how would you know where that tweet was coming from? Well, if you feed it through enough algorithms, in principle, you can now start identifying elements of location. You're never going to get the latitude, longitude of Rich just sent a post from Mega Room 3, whatever it's called here, about he gave a talk, etc. But it would say someone in Melbourne posted a thing because it mentioned RMIT and Professor Sinnott. And then using the wonders of large language models, pulling in information, you can now locate me to a certain extent. So this is something we're looking into as well. All right, let me get back to my talk now. So knock yourself out if you want to use the system, by the way. I will show you a few examples of what my students do just for the hell of it. I've supervised lots of dissertations. Examples of the stuff we've done, just as a proof, just show you it's what you can do. Seeing changes in sentiment in real time across the population. So that was like the Brazil against Germany game. So you can see there's been a spike, happy to sad or sad to happy, and you can predict every goal. We've done the same thing for cricket. Which team won the game or lost the game. You've probably seen this already, maybe not, about elections. Who's going to win the next election? You don't guarantee your money on it, obviously, but if you really want to know if there's a massive swing left or right, you can wait for a poll to come out with, the Vote Compass or the Maury poll or whichever one, or you can just keep your finger on the pulse. Will the RBA change the rates? What's the people on the street thinking about this? And what does the official banking folk think about this? We have access to a lot of that data. As with students, they like to look at naughty words. We did an analysis of socioeconomics and saying, do poor people swear more? For argument's sake, this is when we could geocode the data. There's thousands of different scenarios using social media. Multicultural is another one we've done a lot of work on. Which languages? So every single post, generally speaking, will have a language attribute. It will say it's in Chinese or German or French or English or Swahili or whatever. And then we can take that information and say, well, what does the Bureau of Statistics say about the cultural diversity of Sydney or Melbourne? I mean, where do the Chinese people live in Melbourne? Oh, Box Hill. We know there's a lot of Chinese people live in Box Hill. Where do the Brits live? Oh, Narrow Warren. I'm the exception. Or where do the Italians live? Oh, it's all around Carlton and Lygon Street. We think if you actually look at the data and see where people are posting in different languages, you get a different view because the census is once every 5 years. This is like every second. You're getting posts telling you information about people, their patterns, their movement, where they work, where they go, what they like to eat, who they support, AFL teams, Cats versus Hawks versus whatever. We get this all the time. Any given one single tweet, don't trust it. You see tens of thousands, it tells you a story. It's showing you something that you may or not want to believe in, or it might just lead you to an idea that you think, I could do something with this. It's probably interesting, and I could look. We've done work looking into parliamentary donations, for example. Which political party gets which donation? The amount of data that goes in just before the election is scary. And downstream, after the government's got elected, which companies get contracts? Which companies? It's all data from my side. There are databases of parliamentary interests and grants that are given. You don't. All right. Another one we've looked into is, can we tell where people live based upon the food they eat? Again, this is generalizing like crazy, but you can sort of see patterns in the data. What people are eating kind of can potentially lead you to their cultural origin. And we're doing lots of work with neural networks here too. to identify images and what people are showing online, etc. The one project I mentioned before, which was a proper project, it wasn't just a student project, was to do with suicide. I mean, this was a sensitive project, obviously, but the people I was working with were in population health, and they wanted to know what were people doing online before they committed suicide. So they wanted to know, were they reaching out, were they in pain, or was it, here's a picture of me with the sun going behind me and my life is great, and then they completed suicide. To do that, we had to try and find these people online. And it's not always Prof. Richard Sinnott at Uni Melb is my account. It doesn't work like that. Most people will have random, Globetrotter 42 or Hot Dog 47. And so we knew where these people lived. We knew their names, we knew their addresses, and we knew their date of death, basically. And then the scientists we were working with said, could you try and find them online? And so we tried. We did. We found lots of them online, basically. And the one algorithm we used, which we could trust, is that they were posting. If they've never used social media, that was one thing. But one thing we were aware of is that there was a certain point when they died. And if they were posting before then they weren't posting again. This is kind of our algorithm that was based upon what we knew to be true. And we knew their name, so we could variation of accounts. So if I have I don't tweet anymore, but my account was RO Sinnott. If I set up an account, you typically have something to do with your name, unless you want to be some, different, I suppose. But most people typically have either their name or Sinnott 47, because Sinnott was taken. So I'll pick something else. But then based on that, then we could identify the similarities in the name, ends of date of death, and then using that to try and find them. And then we did, basically. So this was some of the data. So it's not just random. These are people who are reaching into a real issue, which is suicide completions, and trying to find them online. What were they saying and doing online, and where they get, where they in certain groups, and where there was any kind of support network around them. Again, the diversity of research topics associated with social media is not infinite, but massive. I mean, lots of people want to do all kinds of data, but need all kinds of data for different topics, basically. I teach cloud computing. My numbers are going through the roof. So I just finished the exam, was 2 days ago, I think, and I had 418 students. And I use all this data for teaching. So I typically will have, this time around, I had 220 gigabytes of data I put onto our supercomputer, Spartan at the University of Melbourne, and I got the students to analyze all that data. And typically I'll ask them to find the happiest person in Melbourne, for argument's sake, or which language is tweeted the most, and you can't pick English. So they have to analyze all this data, extract that little language attribute, German, French, wasn't given, Italian, Chinese, etc. And then they had to do it for different languages, Blue Sky and Mastodon. And okay, you don't really care about this, but I teach them how to use multiple servers, because most people who program, most computer scientists can generally write code on a laptop. That doesn't work when you're dealing with this volume of data. It won't scale. There's one laptop and it will crash. It will run out of memory. So you have to write algorithms that run across multiple servers. So this is what I teach. And so I got the students to say, does your code run 8 times faster if you have eight servers? Long story short, it doesn't. And there's a reason for that. But this is I use this data for teaching purposes, as well as just for the good of Australian research, effectively. I was going to do a show and tell here, but I probably won't bother. It's basically, I was going to show you one of the kick-ass student projects I've just supervised, who looked into a whole range of different topics. Cost of living in Australia, how are the media reports cost of living, how people are talking about electric vehicles, which vehicle is the most popular, all this kind of diverse scenarios. They use millions and millions of millions of data. And this, at the back end, it's using the same tech we use. So our database is based on the system I've shown, is Elasticsearch. We use a serverless solution, don't have to worry, but that's we're also using technology called Kubernetes. You don't have to worry, but it's fairly hardcore. If you've never done this kind of stuff was incredibly in demand before agentic AI took over, and anyone who has comp sci skills now is becoming redundant, because it can also be auto-generated. But the students basically had to use AIReD to find random topics and then go and get a lot of that data themselves and then use it with official data. So you might say, I'm going to focus on crime or the Australian Stock Exchange, and I want to see which Telstra or CBA or which companies are very popular in social media, and how does that track with the price on the stock exchange. So we have an official source of truth, which is this is how the stocks are trending according to the ASX. What are people thinking about it online? Are they posting positive or negative? And then you start saying, okay, if people like this and don't like that, then you would think one will go up in price and one will go down. AFL teams. Do people only support a team when they're winning? Are they happy when they win? Or can you predict whether they won or lost based upon social media only? These are the kind of nuances in the data we can start assessing, but we have a source of truth. Are people happier when it's hot or cold or wet or windy? So we have data from the Bureau of Meteorology, and we can tell you when it's raining and hot, how are people trending online? Is the emotions of the population happier or sadder? And if you're not doing any kind of analytics of political opinion, let's say, and you're not factoring in all these other factors, it was a rainy day and it was stormy and it was horrible, people were negative, that's why they didn't like Anthony Albanese on that day, all this kind of stuff. I'll do one more quick demo and then I'll shush. Social media is interesting for me. It's there, we collect it, we do lots of things with it. It's kind of cool and fun, and you can have lots of stories. I was involved for many, many years, 12 years, building a system called AIReD, which was basically about official data, accessing all the official data for Australia. If you want to know where the Chinese people live in Australia, where'd you get that data? It's the Bureau of Statistics. If you want to know how much crime's happening in Melbourne, it's Victoria Police. If you want to know where all the bottle shops are in Melbourne, it's the Victoria Commission for Licensing, Gambling, Regulation, VCGLR. These are the official agencies that have the official data. So I had to build a system which interface to all of those kinds of distributed sources. Most government agencies don't know how to do data, or they don't know how to build systems over the internet. They just have a website and then you have databases somewhere in between. They don't know about RESTful APIs. They don't do that. It's not they're terrified of being hacked. So I had to spend a lot of time trying to work out how to build a system that interfaces to. There's 150 something agencies I had to talk to the system, all completely different. Now, where are the toilets in Melbourne? That's a point. It will tell you every single point on a map. Where's the road network? So that's a graph. Where is Carlton? That's a polygon. So we had to deal with all this complete heterogeneous data and security around it. So I won't go through all of this, but are kids getting more obese because they're doing couch potatoes, living on computers, or is it bad food? Melbourne's wonderful and livable, but yeah, say that to someone coming in from Point Cook when there's been a minor incident on the Westgate Freeway and they're stuck in traffic jam for 5 hours. We have more and more people coming to live here. Is everyone happy? There's lots of different scenarios that are driven by data, and we wanted to unlock the official data. Oh, here's a classic one there. Little house in North Carlton, falling apart, dry rot. Yours for offers over 2 million. There's another one. A chateau in the south of France, 7 bedrooms, trout farm, swimming pool, tennis courts, offers over under 750,000. So again, Melbourne's a great place if you've your own property and you've ridden the wave up. It's not as livable. So I had to unlock a lot of this data. So again, long story short, we built a system that did exactly that. You could interrogate all these different diverse databases and look, say, at cancer data and how many cars on the roads and which companies are polluting and all this. And we had interfaces to the Victoria Lung Cancer Registry. So how many people have lung cancer? So we can start mashing up all these different data sets together and building all these analytical tools for dealing with the data. We've done a lot of that. Anyway, long story short, that project ended from my side. It's still going, but I won't go into the politics behind it because I'll just get angry. But we built a system that had 25,000 users, over 300,000 accesses, and then someone decided we're not going to have it anymore. And then they buggered off out the country. I'm not bitter. So we replaced it with a system called Sudo. So this is me putting two fingers up to the people who pulled my funding. I don't need their money. I never did. I did it because I'm interested in the kind of stuff we can do on the tech side. And so we have access to lots and lots and lots of data now, the official data for Australia. So what I was going to do very briefly is just show you, if you're interested in data, then we have lots of data. This is all the official data for Australia. Anyone can download it, access it. If you're interested in diabetes, if you're interested in cancer, if you're interested in politics, if you're interested in, we have data. So I could say, show me all the data sets you have to do with income. And it's like, there's like 8,000 something data sets in the system. So we have 1,100 to do with income. So if I just look at one of them, just to show you briefly, this may be of interest to you, maybe not, I don't know. But we can sort of see there's lots of data here. I can sort of see this is data for a particular area around Brisbane, I guess, which is the average median income is $2,400 according to the last census, etc. If I wanted to, I could download that data to my desktop. I could then mash that up any way I want. It's just a single source of lots of data. You don't have to go into, where do I find data on cancer or premature deaths? There are resources available. If I just show you one more, just to show you I'm not telling fibs. So there are lots of different sources of data. There's 205 different official sources of data to do with cancer in Australia. If you're interested in this, this is cancer screening. This is people who've died a premature death of cancer. This is to do with whatever it might be. We have a lot of those data sets in the system, which you can now play around with and download to your desktop. If you did download it, you're going to get, it's typically spatial data. You don't really care. It's a spatial data set, which has the polygon as well as the actual data itself. All right. Final thing I'll say, and then I'll stop, and you can ask me any questions you want, is infrastructure. All of this, the stuff I've just shown you, runs on the cloud. There are, I think you might have had a bit of a workshop on this anyway about it. All right, so you've heard about Nectar. That's one resource that's available. Anyone, I teach this stuff. If you want to have access to your own little server, generally speaking, for Nectar, you need to have access to a project. So you apply for a project, and typically they will say, this is only for national research. So if you're involved in an ARC grant or NHMRC or something else, you can say you want a server, and they'll give you one for free. If you don't have any kind of resources and you're just a student and you want to have access, you can log into Nectar. You get a tiny little virtual machine, like 4 gigs of memory and 30 gigs of storage, which you can just play with and do stuff with. So if you don't have your own infrastructure, you can use their ones. As I say, at Melbourne, we use, this is the data center here at UniMelb. I typically take all my students here. And my job generally is making this stuff useful for people. So most people have heard of the cloud. You might have played with some of the cloud. Maybe you've used Amazon or Azure, probably not. I guess most people don't. But my job generally is to build software systems that sit on top of all of this stuff. And we use all different clouds. So with defense, I use Azure. With intelligence agencies, I use AWS. Lots of people want Google. We generally use free stuff. I don't like giving money to Mr. Bezos, and I hate giving money to all of these big global titans that are just, whatever, no politics. So I generally build stuff pro bono for people I like, and then I host and run it for them for free. That's one thing I didn't say. At the end of the AIO project, I will continue to host and run AIReD. So I do this with all my projects because I can. I have a lot. I'm not paying for this infrastructure. So other than having a techie to make sure it hasn't fallen over and it's still doing what it should, I generally host and run all those projects I'm involved in for customers. They give me a grant. I'm involved in a grant with them. After that, I just host and run their system pro bono. This is kind of my gig because I can, basically. If this was Amazon, I would turn it off as soon as the project money is dried up, because they get very expensive very quickly. This will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. In fact, one project I have is like $250,000 a month to run on AWS right now. But the clients, banks, don't care. They're happy to pay all those obscene amounts of money. So it's not my credit card, it's somebody else's. All right, I'll stop now. I'm happy to take any and all questions.
Is your use case for Nectar?
Thank you very much. Fascinating presentation. I think I'll just probably take a week to absorb everything that you've just told us. And obviously after that, would like to play with the system. But just a question of understanding, I think a bit of clarification. You initially said that the system is basically all about Australia, but I can also see references to other political events such as those happening in Iran,
Sure.
Israel. So is that system basically telling us about everything that has been said in Australia about political events globally, or do you think there's some opportunity there to just look at what other people are saying in other parts of the world?
Yeah, so long story short, all the posts we have, let's say from Mastodon, there are certain Mastodon servers which are Australian oriented, Mastodon.au and Oz Social. For Blue Sky, we have a set of, we try to focus as best as we can on Australia. For Reddit, it's kind of, we're just following Reddit subreddits basically. And it might be r/Melbourne. And there they might be talking about Iran or the memorandum of understanding about the peace or the Straits of Hormuz, etc. Those posts can come from anywhere. It's all in the Reddit Melbourne subgroup or Sydney or Australia, etc. But there's no guarantee we can say that these are the posts that are absolutely guaranteed to be from Australia. If you're interested in you could certainly look at the data. I mean, I could do another demo now, I suppose, just type in Iran and see how many posts are mentioning Iran. And then you can see where those posts coming from. So if you wanted to do a deeper dive into, show me any posts that mention, I'll do it. I'll be very brief. So if I was interested in Iran, for argument's sake, so I'm just using Blue Sky right now. So I've got 534,000. If I wanted to, I could then start drilling into who are these user accounts. You could then start, if I said, oh, where are these people based? Give me more information from their profile. I could click on that link. It would tell me about who that person is. If they're coming from wherever they are, so clearly they are, somewhere else. So again, this is where the issue is. You kind of, someone just posted about Iran. We think it's from Australia, whether they are from Nicaragua or Belize or Melbourne or Perth. You then have access to all that data now. If you wanted to start cleaning it and work out how many of these are actually Australian, and then from those who were Australian, how many of them are left-leaning or right-leaning or pro-Israel or anti-Israel or whatever the thing might be, you then can start, you've discovered. Now it's up to you to do your cleaning and exploration and doing a deeper dive. What we don't do is answer your research questions, because there's too many different questions that people will have about global conflicts or electric vehicles or politics. So what we are is a discovery mechanism and a way for you, as a conduit for you to now going into doing a deeper exploration. But it's hopefully the system, I generally suggest if you wanted to use it, just go straight to the text search interface and just type in, terms that you're interested in, and you're going to get, if I wanted to now, in fact, let me just show you what it looks like. I guess let me just go to Mastodon. I think Mastodon might be less voluminous. So if I wanted to say, show me all the posts about Iran, I'll just show you now what it looks like. If I hit the download button, I've just downloaded all the posts that have been, so there's, I don't know how many thousands there are in Mastodon land. If I went to that one, this is let me just show you. There's 368,000 posts, I guess, from Mastodon, which is showing up. If I want to go to the first one, so there you go. That's like a post that mentions Iran. And then you can now, in principle, you could have a bit of Python code, which would say, go and give me that actual raw text. So Iran war, momentary, blah, blah, blah. And then you could feed it into your own algorithms to clean it up and tidy it and say, okay, this guy's posted 100,000 times and it's always him complaining about this, or it's the first time he's ever posted about that, etc. So that's generally the process. You literally go and grab whatever data you're interested in. We don't care. You could do the same thing for Blue Sky, for Reddit, etc. What you will find, I'll flag it now, a lot of these posts have vanished. They've been deleted either by the people or, heaven forbid, conspiracy theory. Someone didn't like it online and somehow magically vanished. But we have it.
Any more questions? In other countries, we wouldn't use these kind of
I didn't. In principle, there's nothing to stop us.
Yeah.
Just saying, give us everything. But then the problem is, well, you sort of see the volume of data we have now is already getting sort of, we have many terabytes of data. And when I'm not Twitter, I'm not Silicon Valley. I'm a professor at a university and I have a finite set of resources and people who are doing this. But in principle, what we've done right now is absolutely repeatable. If you wanted to focus on just building a similar kind of infrastructure, again, I teach this stuff. It's kind of all the students I teach can do what we've done here. It's not rocket science when it comes down to, if you're a computer scientist, you should be able to do these things. It's like standard recipes we follow for how to build these kind of systems. If you wanted to collect your own data on Central America or Asia or particular topics, you could.
Yeah.
But we generally, wasn't really our focus. If you want to take cloud computing, you could build the same system next year.
So it seems for me like it's a tool for collecting data from social media so far, but can it do data analysis from the data collected for sorted, and then we want to make just patterns of it?
Yeah, so we've done a few things in that space, which I haven't really gone into yet. I mean, we do certain things like we do topic modeling and we do sentiment analysis. It's already done. So we can see people are happy or sad, and we've done that for you for every post we get through. What we haven't done yet is, and we're sort of exploring it, I guess you can say, is producing a range of Jupyter, I don't know if it makes any sense, Jupyter notebooks for the clients. So we could build you a Jupyter notebook which has all the algorithms and all the analysis in there, as in you want to do a linear regression or a support vector machine, or you want to do some correlations. We do a lot of that stuff and we can provide that for you. The challenge is now we can either make that available on the cloud and you're doing your analysis on the cloud through your notebook, or you want to do it on your desktop. And what does it look like for people who are trying to do analysis of a terabyte of data? They're not going to like us very much. But certainly writing all these algorithms is something that we've done a lot of. I mean, this is kind of what most of my students do. They do a lot of the data analytics, I guess you can say, the data science, the data cleaning, the data processing, to look at what people are talking about and the visualization and the graphs and the charts. That's something we've done, but generally speaking, it's kind of difficult because, as I say, the people that are using the system are coming from all areas of, they don't just want a stats package. They want a deeper dive into the graph of people that are posting their stuff, and they want to see the conversation trails, and they want totally different requirements about what the customers are asking for. But there's nothing to stop us building some standard notebooks with the most typical packages that I'll show you. I wasn't going to show you, but I'll show you briefly. I can't stop. No, I didn't want to show you that. Or that. Hang on, let me just. I like golf, by the way. I'll just show you what my students did very, very briefly. I won't go through all of this. I'll just show you super, super fast. So this is what a notebook looks like. This is them writing some code that's talking to our API and collecting data. I've got them on mute, but I'll show you some of the graphs and charts they produce. So this one is looking into the amount of things that are talked about online in the different platforms. I'll just scale up here. So this one's looking into what people are talking about. Is it about politics? Is it about cost of living? Is it about crime? Is it about safety? So they're collecting all their own data using AIReD, and now they're telling us This is what it looks like on social media land. This is what it looks like in news land. Is the reporting bias? Is the news more negative, saying we're all going to die and everyone's going to get cancer and life is horrible? Is that what we're seeing in social media as well? They also did, I won't go through all of this because it goes on and on, but I was thinking if I ran out of time, I could have shown you. But this is a nice little scenario here they come up with. It shows you how things are reported in social media. When it's positive, what it's positive about politics, or it's positive about what things are they positive about, and how does that compare with positive or negativity around the news, and how does that compare with positivity or negativity around official sources of data? So this is the kind of stuff my students do, and this was end of 6 weeks. So from 0 to a finished system in 6 weeks using the data we provided. But you can sort of see here, like they're looking into sentiment is generally evenly balanced across all of these things. If you like positive, negative, neutral. If you look at the media reporting, it's much more polarizing, I guess, without getting into the whole politics of what does polarizing mean, etc. But you can sort of see now from the data, you can see how people are worried about, it's news media reporting incredibly negatively about crime, for example. It's a large part of the things that are spoken about in a negative way is to do with crime. If you actually go online, crime is only a very small part here of what people are worried about. It's more about the price of, bananas and, can I afford to fill up my car, as opposed to I'm going to get mugged. This is kind of the reality. This is what the data is saying. So again, from a analytics perspective, you can sort of see this is what they come up with using the data we provided. The consumer price index going up, number of jobs are going up, immigration's kind of flatlining, the stock index is coming down, comparing that, factoring that in with people are happy or not happy about, the AI is going to take away their jobs, etc. All those kind of stuff you can get from the data. Again, I don't come with a theory saying this is the answer. I give you the data and you can play around with the data, fill in your algorithms as you see fit to then come up with a hypothesis saying people are worried about AI and it's going to take over the world. How true is that? Or is that just media bias? So anyway, I'll stop rambling. Yes. So what we've done for you already, we use a range of natural language processing libraries to give sentiments. Every single post we have has a sentiment associated with it. But you might want to run your own algorithms because maybe you don't trust our ones, because maybe you have your own, we don't like your text blob, we want to use our own NLTK or whatever. No, there are many algorithms out there and they'll tell you variations of a theme and how they interpret some of them can't do sarcasm, like I love Donald Trump, LOL, is a positive for Donald Trump when obviously someone's being sarcastic. Anyway.
Well, it was an incredible presentation. Thank you so much.